everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. The NBA draft is in the books, and there are a lot of big moves being made in and around the NBA. And of course, the Pelicans have made a draft pick, so we will get into all of that and more. I'm Gus Kattengell, and joining me to talk a little bit about that, Mr. Andrew Lopez, television sideline reporter, and Jim Eichenhofer, the Jim Eichenhofer of Pelicans.com. Good morning, gentlemen. How are y'all?
I'm doing well, Gus. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Jim, have you ever thought of changing your Twitter handle or X handle to the Jim Eichenhofer?
I have not, because I don't think there's another Jim Eichenhofer in the world that I have to get confused with. So
I mean, the Jim Eichenhofer, just in case.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
It's a bold statement.
I like
exactly. Look, in case you can't tell, we are excited. There's a lot of things going on, and as we tape this here on this Thursday morning, 2 Thursdays from today's July 9th, that's important because Summer League starts. Pels could be playing. We'll get into all of that and more, plus the big moves that are being made with some big names being traded to new teams. Western, Eastern Conference, we'll get to that. But we will start with, of course, the 58th pick overall. The New Orleans Pelicans select a local product, Jaron Pierre Jr., St. Aug graduate. And I don't know about you two guys, my phone has been ringing or buzzing or whatever it is you want to say the last not even 24 hours now since the draft pick. I think so much can be said about this pick. Let's just get to who is Geron Pierre Jr., sir.
You know, it's so funny that there's this much excitement about a 58th overall pick. Normally, if somebody's picked 58th, you're trying to figure out a little bit about who is this guy? Where did he go to school? If it's an international guy, you're trying to look up some stats on that. But when you get a local product and a guy who has earned it as much as he has, it really is exciting, and you feel kind of a little buzz around it that you didn't think you would feel for the third to last pick in the NBA draft. So I think it's great so far to see somebody who has truly improved at every level since he left St. Aug. He did it at USM, tried to continue to prove himself. A crazy college career, 4 colleges in 6 years, took full advantage of his COVID year. He is class of 2020 high school, but because of his COVID year, but he graduated at 17 from St. Aug. He's still just 23. He'll turn 24, at Summer League, right before Summer League. So just the fact that he's still at this point growing, and it's great to see the excitement. And I think, you kind of saw it if you saw footage from his draft party last night, if you saw footage from just the reactions on his social pages and other posts, it's a good thing to see the city kind of get excited for somebody like this.
Going into the draft in the days before, just purely from a media coverage standpoint, I had joked with people that I hope the 58th pick, nothing against international players, but I was saying I hope it's not a guy that is maybe going to be stashed for a couple of years overseas and somebody we're not familiar with. I hope it's an American who's played like 4 or 5 years in college. So I don't know if my
so you did this, is what you're saying. So you went into Joe and Troy's office and just dropped some hints.
Yes. Spoken into existence.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I mean, the fact that he has so much on his resume, Andrew referenced it. It's not to me that he played in 4 colleges, is that he was really productive at all of them. Like he was Conference USA Player of the Year. He was all freshman for when he first started in college, and then he had a really good last season as well. So I mean, he has so much that you can talk about just from his college career, which is, I like that from a media coverage standpoint.
And he was the Kusa.
Yes.
Kusa.
As we just taught
today,
Jim, that Conference USA
can be referred to as
Kusa.
Kusa.
For my days at Southern Miss. But look, you touched on the resume. Let's kind of get into that here. I mean, Andrew, you mentioned the 4 colleges, but he didn't just kind of hang out at those schools there as well. Jim just mentioned it, Player of the Year in 1 conference. And everywhere he went, he scored, he made plays. And let's just start with there in case you don't know. He's 6'6", 210. He's got some size on him. We're going to get to maybe the defensive side of things too that Coach Mosley may like because he's physical. But just talk about his scoring really and what he's been able to do in those years that he's been in school.
First, I want to talk about one of his better scoring performances in high school. It's my favorite tweet of the night. It was a shot at one Will Guillory, but it will also...
That's all the time we have for Andrew Lopez. Unfortunately, his mic's not going to work anymore. In case you hadn't noticed, I went to Brother Martin as well.
and Mr. Pierre dropped 27 on Brother Martin, and that was a great pull by Pelicans film room last night. I wanted to make sure you saw that.
I did see that. Yes,
but you know what? It's what he has done again at every level. 2,185 career points throughout his 150 games in college. He also, it wasn't like he was not even playing at certain points. Played in 152 career games, started 121 of those games. Hit over 323s in college, and those percentages went up. We talk about him getting better at every stop. His first 3 years in college, shot 33% from three, 33% from three, 28% from three. Had a redshirt year after he transferred from Wichita to Jacksonville State. Then proceeded to shoot 38% and then 37% in the ACC, taking that jump. And so being able to keep that efficiency in his last 2 years is what kind of turned him into the NBA prospect. There was kind of some whispers early on when he was at Jacksonville State and what he could do. And you know, he's having some very good games against Conference USA teams. He's averaging 21 and a half a game. But it was coming out of that, he knew maybe he needed to prove himself one more year. And he does it in the ACC. I mean, he had some big games. He had big games against Florida State. He had big games against Syracuse. When you start having those, Syracuse, I just want to throw that one out there too, just in case.
He's on fire this morning, isn't he? Yeah.
Going.
He's coming at everyone.
Going. If those are the types of programs you're having these games against, you get on radars. And so, and I think if he was not the 58th pick in the draft, he would have made a splash in summer league, and somebody would have recognized and noticed him because he is continuing to get better. And you mentioned his size. You mentioned him being 6'6", 210. One of the reasons he was going to Southern Miss out of school, he was an actual 0-star recruit. I know we hear this thrown around sometimes of, oh, I was a nobody recruited me, and then you go look up their 247 page or their on 3 page, their rivals page, whatever, and you're like, oh, well, you were a 2-star here, you were a 3-star, you didn't get the offers you wanted.
Yeah, he
is a legitimate 0-star recruit. Had a very good senior year, kind of walked on. Had the issue where COVID kind of ends his senior year, a little early, and so now he gets to you get to figure it out, and so he made the most of every opportunity. When he got to Southern Miss, he was listed at 6'4", 182. Listed. Now he is measuring at the combine, 6'6" in shoes, 200 pounds, listed at 210. Probably lost a little bit of weight when he was working out for school, but can probably get to a 6'6", 210 frame. It reminds me of what Elfrid Payton had to do when he was coming out of school. Elfrid Payton, obviously a former Pelican, also he played for EP's elite, Elfrid's AAU team.
Yeah.
Elfrid coming out of school was probably 6'1", 170. Then he grows when he's at UL, gets to 6'4", 190. It's a similar path, and you kind of just see that not everybody is going to be, you know, the guy coming out as a high school senior, and that's who they're going to be in the NBA. No, it takes a little different path for guys, and it's great to see.
It's funny. Right after the Pelicans drafted him, and I started trying to research as much as I could, I saw on his basketball reference page, which is his college page, it lists him at 180, and then I watched the video of him from last season, and I'm like, his frame, you know, we talk about his body.
Like, that ain't 180.
That's not 180. And it's almost like straight out of Central Casting in terms of what an NBA player looks like. If you picture in your mind, okay, what is the physicality? What does that, you know, appear to you for an NBA player? And it's like, he's pretty muscular. He's really athletic. He's throwing down windmills on the YouTube highlights I saw. He had one play, I think it was from last season, where he basically dunked on his own teammate because somebody threw an alley-oop to one of his teammates, and he ran up and dunked it, and his whole squad was laughing because it was just one of those plays. But yeah, I mean, I was blown away by his transfer. I saw some highlights from his high school career as well. It doesn't look like the same person from over, you know, a few year span.
And I think that's the thing that really stood out to me when you're looking at the highlights or the tape, as everyone likes to call it, what's been out there. Ball handling, speed, athleticism that Jim mentions, being able to play above the rim, size, as we're talking about. As you were talking, Andrew, I'm just thinking of players that made impacts. You know, we were talking earlier on our podcast this week about like guys like Micah Peavy, Bryce McGowan's impact. I think he's taller than them, right? Or he's around that size.
He's a little bit taller. But
that's my point. Like, as Pels fans are thinking, there are players currently on our roster that are comparable size-wise to them, to kind of give you an idea of what you're adding to this roster.
Yeah, and I think it's another wing, and it's a guy who can hopefully, what you hope can grow into, do a lot of things. And I think it's somebody who, and like most guys who come into the NBA have to improve on defense. The guys who are the Herb Joneses of the world are rare and few and far between. But I think this is somebody that Jamal Mosley is going to love getting into his program and seeing what he can do on the defensive end.
I think the other thing that's interesting too is we can't forget the G League team. It's now going to be down the street over in Kennebra. I don't know if that's the official way to kind of promote it or not, but point being, that's fantastic. Now you have these local kids that legit have, look, that story's amazing, right? Yeah. From zero started doing that. Now you're in NBA, but he could be a guy that literally could play in the afternoon, could be downtown at night. That's some of the advantages of having it. But more importantly, you have somebody now that people locally can go to and go watch play.
I think it's very rare for a team to have a 58th overall pick, and I think there will be a demand for the jersey for the 58th overall pick. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that I think I would love to see, and I think you would see quite a few. I know he hasn't picked his number yet, but maybe it'll be 55. I know he's been 5 for a lot of his career, and he was 55, I think, at USM for a little while, but. Would be fun to see those jerseys in the crowd.
And Jim, as you know, being a New Yorker now, a Louisianian, you've been here long enough. We love to promote our own, and we love to make that a big deal now. But it's not just us that think this is a nice pick and a nice player, right? Nationally, Geron's getting a little love.
Yeah, there's definitely some comments from websites kind of hot off the presses. I went through this morning and looked at some of the draft report cards that different websites have posted already this morning after round 2. So I wanted to throw out some of these comments to Andrew and get his reaction. You can jump in whenever you feel the need to.
You got it.
CBS Sports says about Pierre, one of the most productive guards in college basketball. He has a chance to carve out a role in the NBA with his size, shot making, and overall scoring ability. The key will be how he adapts to a lesser role.
I think the shot making is key, and what you saw, again, this goes to the last 2 years, of improving that efficiency. It's one thing to just continue to drive and continue to have 3 years where he shot under 40% from the field, and then come away with 2 years where you're around 55, 56% with your true shooting percentage. That efficiency taking a jump is what's going to be key. Everybody has to get used to a different role in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Very rarely, just like we talked about, very rarely is it a guy like Herb Jones can come play all NBA level defense right away. Very rarely are you having a guy, unless you're 1, 2, or 3, and even those cases are rare, where you're the focal point. A lot of these guys, if you're being drafted, you probably were the focal point at some point in your college career. Are you a very high efficient role player for a very good team? Like Michigan, we just saw Michigan have 3 guys in the top 13, 15, whatever it was. Rare situations. Everybody has to adjust.
Yeah,
everybody has to adjust, especially if you're a second rounder coming in. I don't think that'll be an issue, but maybe that'll be a lead role that he sees in times that he does get to spend with Lake Town, if that's the option.
Yeah, it seems like that is referring maybe specifically to he was on the ball a ton in college. He was the number 1 option. And obviously in the NBA, you're talking he's going to be probably in more catch and shoot situations, maybe not as many times where he's shooting, off the dribble and just playing like one-on-one isolating. I saw, by the way, too, a bunch of clips where his post-ups, we talked about his frame. He's really strong, and
send him to the Sadiq Bey School.
He can back
Sadiq Bey School of post ups.
I saw him do that in college, though. He can back guys down with how strong he is. So, moving on to NBC Sports comment is he has potential, but he's got to show better defense and playmaking to stick with the Pelicans.
Again, I think that's what you would expect from the 58th pick, and I think the playmaking is going to be key. To your other point, though, you're probably going to see him playing more 2. He'd probably be more of the 2 guards. Even the playmaking is kind of there, but you also just want to see that shooting be consistent, the scoring still be consistent.
Yahoo Sports. Pierre is an athletic wing who scores from all 3 levels, hits 40% of his catch and shoot threes, tends to make the right decisions off the dribble. He needs to put greater effort into his defense to earn minutes in New Orleans for reasons other than scoring.
I think, again, this just goes back to it. If anybody, Jamal Mosley will not allow him to not put in the effort on defense. That's going to be very, very key.
And lastly, I want to bring up one huge red flag about Pierre, and that is this guy's got gray hair. He's ancient. He's played in basketball for forever. He's not 19 years old. What's the deal? How can you possibly take a guy who's the seasoned age of 23?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because we were just talking about that in an earlier podcast, Jim. When you take a look at the Pelicans' history, not just second round picks, but just really it's kind of worked, right? I mean, Trey Murphy wasn't a high school, immediately.
I think he was 21.
Exactly.
He was drafted.
You take
Herb
a
was
look,
22, maybe.
Peavy, we mentioned a couple other guys, Herb Jones. I mean, these are all guys that are seasoned. So that maybe does help you make an impact because you understand what you have to do.
That's exactly what Micah Peavy did. I mean, Micah Peavy was a 5-year guy, took advantage of his extra year and came in ready to play because he had all of that extra experience. So you have somebody you're coming in with, again, 152 games of college experience. I think that is going to benefit him, whether it is on Lake Town, whether it's with the Pels. But it's one of the reasons I am very excited. Very excited. I don't say this often about being on a plane to 118-degree heat.
Yeah.
I am very excited about getting to Las Vegas.
It's a dry heat. Actually, no, it's not.
And just to wrap it up, I mean, this might have been written by someone your former employer at ESPN, but they wrote, believe it or not, Pierre was a member of the vaunted high school class of 2020, which was headlined by Cade Cunningham.
And I think it's funny you talk about his age. He's still 23. Even though you think about that. He graduated Aug at 17. He's still just 23 years old. He'll turn 24. But again, I'll take that. You want that experience in a second round pick. And I think that's what you see a lot of these guys traditionally being drafted. I'll take that because you know what you're doing out there.
All right, welcome back to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Gus Kattengell, Andrew Lopez, Jim Eichenhofer. Gentlemen, look, obviously lots of excitement about Geron, a St. Aug product, being a New Orleans Pelican. But how about the state of Louisiana, Andrew, getting 3 players with Jaron Pierre Jr. going in this draft and a couple going in the first round?
Yeah, Alan Graves going in the first round, Chris Senac going in the first round. I think both of those guys. Graves graduated from Ponchatoula. Senac was at Newman, was at Riverside before that, at Newman. Played his senior year at Link Academy in Missouri, wanted to just kind of get out and get some different competition. So, but it goes back to showing you this has been traditionally a very talent-rich state in basketball. We see this all the time, and it's good to see that kind of coming back to the forefront, especially with a pair of first-rounders.
It seemed like there was an era, maybe mid-2000s, where there was a bunch of guys from the state coming into the NBA, and some of them ended up playing here for the Pelicans or the Hornets. It seemed like it's kind of another wave of talent, though. But it is impressive to me. We were looking at starting at how many players born in New Orleans have played here. Then it was how many people born in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how long the list becomes when you expand it out, even just to players that have played for the Pelicans.
Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Russell, Bob Pettit. We talk about, obviously, Joe Dumars just across the parking lot here, but Karl Malone. You're talking about some of the biggest names in NBA history. And I think that's something as we move forward to highlight more and more, because it's awesome being a kid. You're shooting your driveway, you're playing pickup games, and you do have an NBA team here in your city. And more importantly, you can get to the league yourself here and doing that. So that's awesome to see, to have the state be represented the way they did. Now, that said, obviously a lot of big news nationally being done with Giannis being traded from Milwaukee to Miami. And then literally as we're setting up to record this, another big trade took place here 2 weeks out from Summer League at the end of the draft. And that is LaMelo Ball, Jim, going from Charlotte all the way now to a very interesting team in Minnesota, because they were making some moves that kind of looked like it was going to be, trying to free up some space. Well, now we know why. Lots of draft picks, lots of first-round picks in the future. Let's just first and foremost, are you surprised a guy that really helped the Hornets kind of make a playoff push last year leave?
I'm a lot more surprised that Charlotte was willing to trade him than that Minnesota was going after him, because we've seen the last couple of years that I love Mike Conley, but he's at the point of his career where they've been trying to kind of phase him out of being a starter or having a really prominent role. I'm not surprised at all that they were like, we need to find a legit point guard that can play with Anthony Edwards. So I'm really interested to see that pairing. But I think the T-Wolves, like a bunch of other teams in the West, are just trying to load up and trying to see what they can do to compete with OKC and the Spurs.
I think the more surprising part of this trade for me is not even so much Charlotte letting LaMelo go. It was a decent package with the 1 first, the 3 swaps, 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. Is that they let Naz Reid go in Minnesota? I think
he's beloved
that
there.
was that was huge. I mean, do you remember the playoffs a couple years ago? People were getting the Naz Reid tattoos. It was the Naz Reid towels. Yep. Like, I think that you had like the government officials just tweeting out Naz Reid at one point. Yeah. Like, it was a thing. So the fact that that's who you were giving up, because there was some speculation after the draft of how a LaMelo trade would look, whether it would get roped into the Julius Randle deal, whether it would be Rudy Gobert, or how were they going to make this money work, and doing it this way was a bit of a surprise. I said some words that I cannot repeat when I saw the tweet this morning. I was a little shocked at what happened.
His fit's going to be interesting too, and I think when I think of,
it's going to be social media's favorite backcourt.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's an exciting team, the way they sort of play there as well. And maybe it was a topic, Andrew, that we talked earlier this week. The play of rookies this year. Obviously, we saw what Fears and Queen can do, but Knipple and what he's been able to do that. When you have scoring like that, maybe let's go get Naz that can help me beyond the arc and all that, but also down low.
I think what you're seeing right now is with you have Naz, you have Icon Knipple, and then obviously you still have Brandon Miller. What you're looking at right now is that team being kind of molded more in Charles Lee's image, the Charlotte head coach, and kind of getting the pieces that fit him as Charlotte tries to take another step. And I think, again, something that's going to be key.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, Jim, but I can hear Graf's voice in my head from calling games with him. But it always felt like in the second half, if the Pels were leading against the Hornets, it's, well, Anthony Edwards isn't going to sit down and play every minute. Maybe getting somebody to help him out where he can take a breather is probably one main reason to help him out here.
Yeah, but like Andrew said, it's one of those cases where it's like someone's going to have the ball in their hands less, right. I think. I don't think there's any, so it'll be really interesting to see how that works out. But like you said, to be able to have one or the other on the court at all times, I think is something that they're definitely looking forward to.
All right, welcome back, gentlemen. 2 weeks until the NBA Summer League begins. There's going to be a ton of excitement. Obviously, this draft's, it's going to be fun. So much talent to be going there, and obviously with Geron and the Pels and who's going to go there. We don't know that roster just yet. That's going to be coming out shortly. So Pelicans.com, of course, the podcast, they're all going there. Y'all going to have fun. What are you looking forward to when you show up there? Other than, maybe getting a little sleep.
I'm looking forward to watching Micah Peavy play. I feel like that'll be a really interesting element of Summer League as well. And I'm also curious, we don't have the information right now, but just what other players the Pelicans had on the phone last night after the draft to add to the roster, and guys that people talked about how deep this draft class was. There might be some players out there that didn't get picked that could end up on the Summer League roster. That'll be interesting to watch.
I think it's our first look at what this team is going to look like under the Jamal Mosley umbrella. Obviously, he's not going to be out there coaching Summer League, but what is exactly does that look like? And I think we've heard a lot about defense first, and I think this is kind of the first step of seeing what maybe a little bit of a taste of what the identity is going to be. How Geron being out there, we would think Micah was going to be out there. See how some of these other pieces are going to fit, but I just want to see what the first taste of basketball under Mosley looks like.
Yep, it should be fun to watch. And again, Andrew and Jim will be out there, all that coverage, so stick with us.